Hello and welcome to part 5 of Printix's Best Practices series. This time we'll be talking about a lift and shift migration of an existing print server. So this covers how to discover print server queues, so the queues that are actually set up on the print server, how to set up Printix Tenant, so we can convert those queues that are shared and mapped to client computers, and then checking the networks so that the conversion actually runs flawlessly throughout your organization. And finally, we'll close with managing printer queues in Printix moving forward. Once you've done the lift and shift, you can of course manage those print queues in Printix. There's a couple of things we want to make sure before we start this. First of all, we want to register a Printix tenant, etc. All of this is described in detail in other tutorial videos, which I'm going to link up with the card in the top right. Once we have Printix Cloud established and we have Printix Client downloaded and installed onto one of my print servers, what we will get is, in the computers overview, the server entity. After registering a tenant, downloading and installing Printix Client to my print server, what we will see is that that print server is going to be populated in the computers overview in this tenant. Before we get started, one recommendation. Please go to the settings for the tenant and go and switch off the create default print queue and the convert print queues. We have now told Printix not to convert print queues as soon as it finds them on client computers when we get to the point where we roll out Printix Client to all of my computers in my organization. Now, this is a convenient topic to point out that with the question mark, you can access the online manual and, for instance, in this case, tap straight into the implementation guide. We do offer a free implementation guide beginning with how to start the trial and selecting the different ways of implementing Printix. You can download the manual or just view it online. There's flowcharts helping you in the different process steps to make a migration to Printix Cloud as seamless as possible. So we'll just jump back into the administrator, and there is one more thing I'd like to point out. To make Printix completely non-intrusive, we can go to the printer queues and open up the properties for the Printix Anywhere queue. This is our secure follow me printer queue, and it automatically adds when you install Printix Client to any computer. If you don't want this happening, then just untick the box here and save that. So now when we install Printix Client, it's not going to convert anything and it's not going to add anything. So now that this is out of the way, we can start with the migration of the print server and the shared queues on my client computers. How we would go about this is, first of all, we'll go to the computers, open the server instance, and then discover printers from here. By doing this, we are now telling Printix to take a look at the locally installed printer queues on that server, and it's going to bring them across, just like we learned in the previous parts, together with the queue names, the driver setup, etc. So essentially we are now doing a one-to-one copy or a blueprint on what's set up on my print server to Printix Cloud. There we go. We've got the 3 queues for the Lexmark, which are installed over here, and we've got the one for the brother, which is also installed at the top here. Because we've set Printix to not convert anything, nothing's going to happen. So if a user chooses to go to the application now and chooses to print and uses any of these print queues, we are still printing through the shared queue just as usual, as if Printix weren't there. Please also note that the printers are now associated with the network called VMware. The reason for this is these printer queues have been read off of my print server, which is a VM. So therefore, we automatically associate all printers, the physical instance of that printer, with that according network. So far, there are no other networks known to this Printix tenant. To change this, we need to install Printix Client onto, ideally, all computers in my environment so we can then sort out the networks. I'll speed up the recording to save some time when installing Printix client on this computer. I'll put a card at the top right explaining on how to install Printix client onto a computer. Okay, Printix client is now installed on this computer, and of course nothing would have changed with these queues beforehand because we didn't even have Printix client on this machine. So now, because Printix client is set to not convert anything, we won't convert any of these printer queues. We still have peace of mind that nothing will be converted even though we've installed Printix client onto this computer. What we can see is the little dot next to the Printix P and the Printix icon, which indicates that this computer is currently on an unknown network, which means the network range that this computer belongs to has not been made known to Printix Tenant yet. If we wanted to change this, we'd open up the computer and then scroll down and we'd see that there is two options. I can select an existing network that I've created by going to the networks and adding a new network label, or I can add a new network all from scratch. When I do this, I'm going to call this Printix. Add network. So I've now made this network known and I've called it Printix. We can see the little dot has disappeared on the Printix icon as well. Now that we have Printix client on this computer and we've used this computer to make the network known, we can go to the printers and make sure that the printers are associated with that according network. This is really important, otherwise the migration won't work, because what Printix does is it looks at which network your computer is allocated to, and it looks at if the printer that the queues you are currently running is also on your network or on one of the subnets that is routed with your network. If you would like to find out more about networks, I'm going to put a card at the top right, which will take you to the tutorial on how to set up networks. Alternatively, you can of course open up the question mark in the Networks tab, which will take you to the online manual explaining all about networks. So now let's change these printers because they do not live on the VMware network. They simply have the network association VMware because these printers and the queues accordingly were discovered off of my print server, which is running on a VM. So it's its own network. Now that I have Printix client installed on my computer over here, and I've used it to make the Printix a known network, and I know that these printers do actually live on the Printix network rather than the VM network, I can simply do a batch configuration and say modify, and then choose that network from the network selection. So in this case, I'm going for Printix, select, save, and I'm done. So from here we have set up all prerequisites to do a seamless migration. The next thing I can do now is I can go to my networks and override the tenant settings per network. So I can do the conversion not on all computers in my organization, but only for a certain network, a certain department, a certain site. So in this case, let's open up the Printix network and say convert print queues yes, overriding the global setting for this tenant. Once I do this, I'll have to either restart my computer or log off and log back on, or simply restart the service. I'm going to speed up to save some time. What we are seeing now is the actual migration of the shared queues that are installed on my computer. Printix will see that these queues are known in Printix Cloud. It will match them by print queue name, and it will also look if my computer is on the same network as the printer. If these criteria are fulfilled, it will simply do the migration and convert the queues, which means it is now replacing the port monitor so that these printer queues don't point at the shared queue on the print server anymore, but rather point straight to the device. This is why it's so important to make sure that we have the networks sorted out beforehand, otherwise we'd lose connection to the actual printer. And there we go, we've migrated all 4 printer queues on my computer to Printix Cloud. To me, as the end user, there is no impact. The only thing that has changed is that the queues don't show on 2016 server PS anymore. Other than that, the queue names and the drivers, it's all the same, exactly as it was beforehand. From here now, I can of course change the queues because 216 server doesn't really make sense anymore, right? So let's go into, for instance, this queue for the Lexmark 460 and just delete this off. Save. We're done. The naming convention is of course only chosen the way it is for demo purposes, so it becomes obvious that these queues were inherited from the print server, were mapped onto the client and are now converted and managed by Printix. The real big point here is that we don't need to take care of distributing printer queues through Printix to the client operating systems in my organization, as we've simply taken over what we've discovered beforehand. So that's how you do a lift and shift from a print server driven environment to running everything through Printix Cloud. I hope you found this helpful. Until next time, thank you.